Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project with your host Mick Spears. We bring you thought-provoking guests and topics every week to challenge your thinking about leadership. Our aim is to help you become the leader that you wish you always had as we learn together and lead together. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. We're greatly honoured today to be joined by Carolyn Butler-Madden. Carolyn is the Chief Purpose Activist at an organisation called The Cause Effect, and we're going to talk a lot about this word cause today. She's also the #1 best-selling author of a book called Path to Purpose, How to Use Cause Marketing to Build a More Meaningful and Profitable Brand. So in other words, we're all out there talking about causes, but how do we make it multiple? And I guess that leads on to her most recent book as well, which is called For Love and Money, How to Profit with Purpose and Grow a Business with Love. And that was published in October 2021. So really looking forward to this discussion today to talk about purpose, to talk about meaningful social causes and how businesses and meaningful causes can coexist. I know it's going to be very enriching. So Carolyn, please do say hello to our audience and give us a little bit more about your background and how you stumbled into this world of purpose and cause.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Mick, for having me on your podcast. You're right, I actually did stumble into this world of cause. My background was 30 years in marketing. Actually, I'll go back further because it had an influence, and I'll keep it as brief as I can. But I was born in Singapore, lived in Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, England, all before I turned 15. And I think my time in Asia in my early years, the parents I had, particularly my mother, really gave me a sense of my own privilege, that I won the lottery. It was my mother drummed this into my sister and I, that we had done nothing to deserve to be born into a comfortable middle-class family. And she said, it's pure luck on your part. So, your responsibility is to use that privilege wisely. And then I fell into marketing, the dark arts, and that was not a career choice. It wasn't an active choice. It was by accident. I was living in London. I was like 20 years old. I was just traveling the world, wanting to be a child of the universe and experience different cultures and things like that. And I came back from one of my travels, got a job literally on reception of an agency, and it wasn't by design. And I was lucky enough to fall into an incredible culture. This is in 82, 83, I think it was. And within 6 months, I was brought into the agency, into the client service teams, and I was just incredibly lucky to have people who supported me in trying different things, in growing, and the culture was incredible. And I realized, I loved the skills I got to use, the skills of creativity, strategy, and getting results for clients. And we were working with big brands. And then I came back to Australia in 94, I think it was, landed in a small agency again working for big brands. And by 2000, I came in as a 50% owner of the business. And I always loved what I did, but there was a disconnect, Mick. There was this sort of sense, going back to my childhood of, it's not really meaningful, is it? Selling more carbonated soft drinks and chocolate and electronics and beer and stuff like that. The skills I used, I loved, but what they were serving, I kind of felt wasn't quite right. And then I had an incredible planner who we were pitching for something, and she did this piece of research and showed me what was happening back in the world of cause marketing. And she showed me what was happening, particularly in the US. And I was really intrigued, and we did a campaign for a client, and it was incredible. And it stoked my interest. So in 2011, I took myself off to Chicago to a conference that still is going today. It's called Engage for Good, and it's amazing. And it blew my mind because what I saw even back then was cause marketing. It sounds tactical, right? It sounds superficial. But what they were doing was taking a strategic view of it, and they were building strategic partnerships that were creating unbelievable change. Like one campaign was, close to eradicating maternal and neonatal tetanus in the world, through one huge global campaign. And I just thought, oh my God, this is what I want to do. This is how I use my skills in service of something meaningful. And along the way, I also thought, I can see the challenges that marketers are having, challenges in engaging people and building loyalty and things like that. And naively, I came away from that conference like a raving evangelist for change. And my friends will tell you I was just annoying as anything because I was like, but you need to understand this. And I started going around to clients and sharing inspiration with them and showing them. And without exception, people were drawn to it. But this was back in 2012, and it was too early for Australia. And as much as people, as individuals, as human beings, were leaning in and excited, and you could see the energy shift in a room when they saw what they could do, as much as that happened, there was, I think, Australia's quite a conservative business market, and there was fear in doing something different. Because what if you didn't get the results, and tried to steer my agency down that path. And my team were all in, but the market wasn't ready for it. And eventually I took a big leap of faith and walked away from the agency model and just started from scratch, knowing that this was what I wanted to do.
Wow, there's so much to unpack there, Carolyn. I feel like the episode is now going to go for about 9 hours, everyone, just as a warning. I'm just partially joking there, but there was so much there. You intrigued my insatiable curiosity on so many things, and we'll unpack that. One of the ones that jumps into my mind straight away, and I'll just park this. You've got me wondering, you said that when you found that moment of purpose, that all of your friends probably found that you're annoying. I'm wondering if that is universal, that when that penny drops and someone finds their reason, their ikigai, their raison d'etre, that then they become this evangelist that everyone's like, oh, enough already. But anyway, jokes aside, I think it's wonderful that you did find that. The first thing I also want to reflect back to you, I've spent my share of days in marketing, and you could say that I still do marketing today for the leadership project as well. But marketing is a very powerful tool, and that powerful tool, you called it a dark art, and sometimes it is seen that way. That powerful tool is to stimulate people and inspire people into some kind of action. And you could use those powerful tools in an altruistic way like you have found now, or you could use it in a very kind of, I'm going to say, self-serving way, and for it all to be about profits and maximizing customer revenue per customer and all of these things. And so I think this is absolutely wonderful to explore this today. I want to go all the way back to that experience in London, because you spoke about the culture there. Tell me about what was so special there that gave you that opportunity to grow and to learn.
It was a culture of trust, of support, and of growth. When I joined the agency, there were about 25 people, and it grew to about 100. And, this is the 80s in London, which was an incredible time to be in an agency in London. But there were a lot of young people in that agency. I was the youngest for quite a long time. And the directors of the company invited everyone to step up. they opened doors for them. They presented challenges beyond what you could do with your eyes closed. And they invited you to take a chance and step up. And, people responded to that, and it just created this just vibrant, vital culture. And everybody liked each other. We all loved each other. Social life and work life blended together, but we were all in it together, and we were there to support each other. And it just felt like we were all swimming in the same direction. And, when someone had an achievement, everybody celebrated it, right? But the one thing was opening the door to opportunity for the young people who were just ready to grasp it.
There's a message in that for all leaders listening to the show. I'd like you to really think about what Carolyn is talking about here. Yes, she's talking about an environment of togetherness and support, but this common thread here about opportunity. There's a thing going on now that everyone's talking about, the Great Resignation, and people saying it's a great protest, all kinds of words, great realization that are coming with it, and that people are looking for purpose and meaning. We're going to talk about that as we talk about causes and cause marketing shortly. But one of the things people are looking for is opportunity for growth, for personal development. And the answer may be really simple and right in front of your eyes about stopping this Great Resignation. Instead of looking to reward people with more salary, with whatever you think it is, free soda, whatever you think it is going to get them to stay around, one of the things that they're looking for is opportunities for growth. So next time, here's a call to action for you all. Next time you've got a presentation that the company needs to do, and you, the leader, are the most natural person who would normally do that presentation, how about stepping back and just let someone else have an opportunity for growth in an environment like Carolyn is talking about in that agency that she was in London? All right. Sorry to get on my soapbox there for a moment, but I think that was a wonderful environment that then creates who you are today. Now, tell me then about when you found yourself in some agency work where you're either selling more soda or selling more this or making more money, and the marketing didn't feel like it was doing something of altruistic value. How did that feel?
I've always said that I always loved what I did. And I did. There was a disconnect. I felt like I was, I guess, wasting my time in a way, but I still loved using my skills. And then as a leader, as the CEO of my agency, I absolutely loved working with my team and giving them the support and the confidence to step up and to challenge themselves and to do new things. And I think in the latter part of my agency life, that gave me a lot more pleasure than necessarily doing the work myself. But there's a difference. I think, before I loved what I did, I loved using my skills. What I didn't love was what it was in service of. Now I'm doing what I love. And there's a difference between loving what you do and doing what you love, for me anyway. And it's kind of like, well, now I'm purpose, 100% purpose. What am I using my skills, our skills, what is everything we're doing in service of? And it is a higher purpose.
Yeah, really good. So learning to switch away from loving what you do to doing what you love. I love this. That's going to be one of my takeaways for today for sure. And it is true. Marketing can be fun. It can be kind of cool. You can unlock that creativity and you can get imaginative, and you can have those brainstorming sessions where everyone's kind of bouncing off each other's ideas and all this kind of stuff. But that could be for, not that we do a lot of this anymore, but could be for selling cigarettes, or it could be for something worthwhile. And what I'm hearing from you there is that meaning was really important to you. The end result was really important to you, not just the process along the way. Leading up to that conference that you went to, was there a moment there where you were getting drawn in that way, or was it the conference itself was the pivotal moment for you?
the campaign we'd done before where our planner, my planner had shown, she'd done a great piece of research on what was happening around the world. That for me was this moment where I just kind of went, hang on, what's going on here? It grabbed my interest. That took me to the conference. It took a couple of years. And the conference was where my mind just went, it all came together, and it was kind of like, this is me. This is me, and this is what I want to do. And then it took years from there to actually get to that point in a genuine way. The years after the conference, for about 4 years after the conference, I had my agency. It was then about 7, 8 people. And I was trying to steer it down that path. So I was going out and I was sharing, presentations and stories. But meantime, we were doing business as usual. And, we managed to convince a few clients to do, back then it was cause marketing campaigns. Now the path I'm on is, a purpose strategy, particularly social purpose. But it felt like we were tinkering around the edges. And every time a client said, oh, we need a new product launch, or we need a promotion, or we need a campaign to sell this, we had to jump. Yep. Obviously I had, employees' salaries to pay and so forth. So I felt like we were tinkering around the edges. I felt like, I wasn't able to move forward the way I wanted to with the agency. And I couldn't. A, it was too early for Australia. And B, it was, I had to keep everyone's salary paid. And in order to do that, I had to keep saying yes to the other work that was going in. So, that held me back from doing what I really wanted to do.
So you're using other projects potentially as fuel to generate what you wanted to work on, but it didn't feel right. Can I use the word hollow? I want to try to tap into the emotion that you were feeling when you were doing the projects.
Frustration, extreme frustration, because I could see the opportunity. I could see it so clearly, the value it would have for brands and marketers. But their fear that was holding them back, that frustrated me so much. So it was either fear holding them back from doing it at all, or clients who said, yeah, we'll do a little cause market, or we'll do a cause marketing campaign. But it had no alignment. There was no strategic alignment to their business and brand. It pulled on the emotional tug strings. It achieved results, but frustration, deep frustration for me, because it was like, you're missing the point. You're missing the big opportunity. You're leaving money on the table, and you're missing this opportunity to create real meaningful change and to do exceptionally well as a result. So tinkering around the edges.
So let's uncover this point. Let's call it the point. And forgive me if I ramble here for a bit, but I'm trying to get my head around it as well. About the difference between, we're going to do cause marketing just because we want to look good, versus we're doing cause marketing because we want to do good. Where is the line, and how do you get executives that are responsible for monitoring ROI and how are we going this time? How can you get them to shift from we want to look good versus we want to do good?
That's exactly that's a great question, Mick, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It is, first of all, you have to move it up the chain. It is a strategic opportunity. Okay, so if you talk in the language of, if you remember, this was back in, between 2012 to 2016. So we're in a very different place today with, what leadership believes they can and should do with their business. But you have to elevate it to a leadership level. You have to look at your social purpose being aligned with your business, strategically aligned with your business. So it's not a little side afterthought. It is central to your business and what you're trying to achieve with your business.
Okay. So this is something I've tinkered with the Leadership Project as an example. I've considered that we should have some sponsored scholarships at universities for future leaders so that they start learning leadership skills even before they enter the workspace, where they start to pick up bad habits, et cetera, et cetera. If I was to invest my money in that way, it would be for a cause that's aligned to my vision. Whereas if I just went down to the local hospital and said, okay, I'm going to sponsor some kind of defibrillator for children or something like that, that's got nothing to do with the Leadership Project, well, that would be seen as probably quite honourable but cynical.
Yeah, and short-lived, right?
And short-lived, yeah. Okay, all right, interesting. I've used the word cynical now, and so did you before. Can you give some examples of where this has gone wrong, where someone has tried some cause marketing, but everyone's just revolted and gone, what? You're just trying to, like I say, look good. You're not in this for the right reasons. You're just trying to boost your profits, et cetera, et cetera.
I remember years ago, not the recent floods, but floods a few years back, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, and it was a big electronics company literally jumped on the bandwagon, and they were running some social media campaign and said they were trading likes for donations, and 100%, the flack, they felt it instantly. And, they can argue till the cows come home that they were trying to do the right thing, but it was basically, leveraging to, get social media likes, and not genuine, very tactical, very opportunistic, and not committed to any meaningful change.
That leads me on to something I was going to bring up, so let's bring it up now. Cause jacking. So when there is a cause, there's a movement. Could be diversity, equity and inclusion, could be Black Lives Matter, and a brand jumps on board and starts kind of milking it and riding the wave. Does it really serve them, or does it, in this case, like the electrical company that you're talking about, does it actually have a backfiring effect if someone is just trying to be opportunistic?
I think today more than ever, Mick, it's getting increasingly difficult to be opportunistic. We've got a market who are very savvy, particularly our younger consumers. There are ways easily, with the internet, for people to do a bit of searching. So, if somebody jumps on board the, Black Lives Matter or climate change or whatever it is so easy to go and do a bit of a search and see what else they're doing. It's not enough to just do one thing and that's the end of it. Even some brands that have a history of creating meaningful impact, even they sometimes are questioned. Airbnb is a great example. I've had people who have been a little bit cynical about Airbnb, and yet over the years, Airbnb's purpose is to help people feel like they can belong anywhere. And if you think about it in a brand sense, it's a really nice alignment with their business. But what I love about Airbnb is, and this goes back to, I think it was 2016, they took it further. They actually asked themselves the question, who doesn't feel like they belong? Right? And back in 2016, when Trump was it 2016 when Trump was first elected? I don't know if you remember, one of the first acts he did was to place an immigration ban on 7 mainly Muslim countries. And Airbnb had an ad booked for Super Bowl around that time. And the story goes they pulled whatever ad they had booked and they worked internally 3 nights and put together an ad, which is a beautiful, beautiful ad. And it's called #WeAccept. And it's literally this pastiche of faces. And it says, no matter who you are, who you love, who you worship, or, what color your skin is, we all belong. The more we accept, the more beautiful we are. And they back that up with making available housing for refugees. And it wasn't just about them opening up their hosts' housing. They put their hand in their pocket to actually create housing opportunities themselves. And they have continued that throughout. Here in Australia, they supported the marriage equality movement for marriage equality for LGBTQI. And that was who didn't feel like they belonged, back when that marriage equality debate was happening. And they helped people to show their support for marriage equality, and in that way really helped to catalyse the movement. With what's happening in Ukraine, again, they're making housing available for Ukrainian refugees, and they've also made availability for hosts to Ukrainian hosts to rent out their properties. Well, people aren't going to stay there, obviously, but it's a way to get money directly into the hands of Ukrainian refugees. So they're doing all of this work, and they have been consistent, and they've done a lot more. And that's the kind of consistency you look for. So when I hear criticism of Airbnb, I tell people, go and have a look, and I share this kind of information with them, and they go, okay, wow. But the fact is that cynicism is one of the first things that rises to the surface often. So businesses and brands that are looking to jump on a bandwagon, seriously, they've got to be so careful, because they will get found out and they will be punished as a result publicly.
Yeah, really good, Carolyn. I love this Airbnb example that you are giving. And what it makes me think of is beyond purpose and meaning, it makes me think of values and beliefs that consistency and persistency there, that they are standing up for what they believe in, and their campaigns are brand aligned because they're talking about, well, everyone feels that they want to belong, and having a roof over your head is part of feeling like you belong somewhere. And then having this kind of congruence with their values and beliefs that it's for everybody. Inclusiveness everywhere is what I'm hearing there. And then sticking true to that it's not some, that was our campaign last month and now we've got a new campaign this month, and another one the month after that. And to look at that track record, that's really interesting. I like that a lot, Carolyn. Thank you for sharing that example. I want to add another idea to you, and you're making me think a lot about allyship. And one of the things that we talk about in allyship in diversity, equity, and inclusion world is if you want to be a good ally, ask the person that you're trying to support how you can best support them. So what role do you think it plays that for these organisations that want to do something good, they want to do a cause marketing campaign, that instead of just ferreting away in their back room and preparing something and then presenting it to the world and people judge it on its merits and either go cynical or supportive, why not actually ask the question? So go to these groups. Like if you want to do a cause marketing around homelessness, go and talk to either the agencies that need your support. Go and talk to them and ask them what would be most impactful for you before you put pen to paper. Any thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, this is all about collaborating to maximize your impact, right? And if you're not talking to the people whose lives you impact, then you're not showing curiosity, right? So immediately there, to me, that's a flag. It starts to feel like perhaps this might just be a bit superficial. I think the other thing is to move the context away from cause marketing to social purpose. So to me, and this is what excites me, it's like I came from, my journey started with cause marketing, but it's moved to social purpose. And social purpose in organizations is what purpose has become. So you go back 10 years to, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Was that about 10 years ago? Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But context is everything. And, the world has changed over 10 years. And today we live in a world that has massive challenges, societal challenges. And the simple fact is business has got to be part of the solution to those challenges. So this idea of Start With Why has resulted in a lot of businesses who have got a purpose statement, which essentially is simply a passive statement of context for their products and services. It just gives a really nice context to it. It sounds good. Everybody feels good. And they put it back in their drawer. Job done. We're now a purpose-led organisation. No, they are not. Because today, purpose is what is driven by the expectations of the market. And the expectations of the market, consumers, employees, investors, is that societal change is now a core business expectation. It's not an afterthought. It is central to what is expected of business. If you look at the latest Edelman Trust Barometer, so are you familiar with the Edelman Trust Barometer? They've been reporting on trust in our major institutions for over 20 years. And you can see, where it's been going. And, we've got huge trust declines. Business is the only trusted institution above government, media, and non-profits, NGOs. Business, particularly my business, my employer. Trust is local. And, the report, and it's not just one report, there are so many reports out there that is showing that people want CEOs to stand up on societal issues. They want business to use its might, its resources, its ability to create incredible innovation to solve the problems of the world. And when business starts collaborating with NGOs, with government, that is where there's huge opportunity, not just to solve these societal issues, which is the most important thing, but for business to earn trust, to earn the absolute loyalty and energy of its employers, of its employees, to earn the trust and loyalty of its customers, and also investors. So for people to become emotionally invested in the success of that business because they care about what they're showing up for. We're not just here to sell, going back to Airbnb, we're not just here to sell housing and experiences, homestays and experiences. We're here to help people the world over feel like they can belong anywhere because, inclusion is important. Whether it is LGBTQI, whether it is refugees, who've lost their homes, whether it's people who are being excluded from entry, this matters. And this is what we're standing up with, not just with the cause marketing campaign. We are using everything we have to to create change in this space. This is our space. That is social purpose, which is purpose as defined by the expectations of all of our stakeholders.
There's at least 4 things I want to unpack there, Carolyn. That was amazing. Firstly, I want to refer to long-term listeners to the show will remember John Mertz from Santa Fe Innovates came on the show in episode 30-something. I'd have to look up the number. And he spoke about this very fact that businesses are in a better position to make societal change than governments these days. And they have a responsibility to do so, right? To recognize, to have the self-awareness of the impact that they have, and then to use that power. What's a Spider-Man quote from his uncle? With great power comes great responsibility. So businesses have more power these days than any government in the ability to influence the way society functions. So use that power responsibly. That's the first thing that popped to mind. The second one was about Simon's work on Start With Why. And I think it comes down to, once again, why are you doing it, right? Is it a cynical use of that powerful tool, or is it an altruistic and socially responsible way of using that tool? If I can break that down, and as a marketer, you would understand exactly what I'm talking about here. The concept behind Start With Why is about the way people make decisions. And if you're tapping into the Start With Why approach just to get an emotional reaction from your audience so they make a purchase, then that's a bit of a cynical approach. But if you're using a Start With Why manner to really get out there and communicate with clarity what you stand for, your purpose, your values and beliefs, you'll then start attracting people around you, whether they be customers or employees, that believe in the same things that you believe. And when they believe in those things that you believe, they'll then work with you with all of their might, not just for their paycheck. They'll believe in the cause and they will work with you with all of their might, so as employees. And the customers will support you because they believe in the things that you believe, not because you played some emotional trick on them. I don't want to get too carried away here, but you know, getting people into the limbic brain and getting them to make an emotional decision because you were a great storyteller. No, you started with why, and your why had substance, and you were out there and you articulated that purpose, your values and beliefs in a way that people that believed in the same things you believe turned up at the door and either made a purchase or wanted to work with you. How does that sit with you?
100%. And what you're talking about, you're speaking my language, because when you talk about that shared belief that attracts, you know, employees who care about what you're trying, the change you're trying to create, and customers, consumers and partners and investors, you're talking about attracting your people like us. So I'm a big Seth Godin fan, and Seth Godin talks a lot about people like us do things like this. And he uses that to get marketers to stop thinking about trying to appeal to everybody and start thinking about, you know, niching down and appealing to people with a certain mindset. Now, people like us do things like this extends beautifully in the purpose world to people like us believe things like this. So the very first step in any work I do with my clients is we start with who. We start with your organizational identity. Who are your people like us? And this is not about excluding. You know, this is not about the antithesis to diversity and inclusion. We want to bring people of all walks of life in, but we want your core people like us to share a common belief that matters to them, that they care deeply about, and that they're prepared to show up in service of. And that core doesn't have to be everybody, you know, but if you know that core, your people like us, then you start resonating with people who aren't quite your people like us. But they look at what you're doing and go, do you know what? I'm not intensely emotionally invested in that stand, in that cause. But I really like that they, I respect that they actually care to stand for something. And for that reason, I'm going to choose that business or that brand or whatever it may be. And there's a radiating effect, but you've got to know your core to really appeal to the people who care deeply, because they will show up, and they'll show up with energy and passion and ideas and innovation. They'll overcome hurdles. And, this stat that we're seeing of 80% of people in Australia and New Zealand, and I think it's pretty global, are disengaged from their work. Mick, it goes to the question, and it's the central question of my book, For Love and Money, my recent book. What if business hasn't yet realised its full potential? What if by going along the shareholder capitalism road, I'm not bashing capitalism, but what if by walking the shareholder capitalism road and in many instances, going to the extremes of that in service of profit, what if business has lost its way of the path it was already on, which is to serve people and society and to create meaningful value for people and society? And right there is where purposeful organisations, those who show up in service of their purpose with actions, with innovation, driving change, that's where, and the simple fact is there are businesses who are showing up that way who are fulfilling their potential because they're attracting people who care deeply about what they do. And they cultivate the culture around those people, and, the values are cultivated around the purpose. And they attract customers who go. So Future Super, Ethical Superannuation Fund. I interviewed the co-founder, Simon Shake, a while back, and he was telling me, he said, our people, their purpose, I'll just give you context, their purpose is to create a better, fairer, renewable energy-powered future. So they make no investments they are only ethical investments, and they're very transparent with their investments. So very niche, and they attract really passionate people. And he said to me, we've got people we've got one member who pitches Future Super at the beginning of her yoga class to all of the people there. He said, we've got a coal miner who's a member, who is deeply passionate about the work we do, and he tells everybody about it. And this is the thing, when you have businesses that people care about, they'll do your promotion for you. You don't need to invest as much in, the big advertising dollars, because you're showing up with truth.
That's really interesting. And then it has social proof and third-party trust as well. And we'll come back to some of that trust aspect. There's so many things again there, Carolyn, to unpack. The first one, I want to go back a little bit. The clarification you made about people like us is really important. And that is, people like us are not people that look and smell like us. They're people that believe in the same things we believe. Okay. And they can come from any walk of life. But the common thread is a common belief, some kind of value system or something that why they want to see a change in the world, and they want to be part of that change. And that's why they get attracted to you when you are very clear about your values and beliefs and your purpose. Yeah, so people like us are not people that look and smell like us. It's people that believe in the same things that we believe. And then you'll attract those people around you that believe in those things and will support you either as customers or employees. The next thing you said about was niching down and being really specific. A lot of coaches listen to this show. So here's an interesting example, Carolyn. So if a coach is marketing themselves and say, I am a coach, it's almost meaningless, because there's 1 million coaches in the world, probably more. And funnily enough, it's International Coaching Week this week as we're recording this. But if a coach is out there and says, I help people that have this problem to become this, then they're going to attract people around them that need that or support that in some way. And the funny thing that happens when you niche down, you mentioned this before, it doesn't exclude people that are adjacent. People will see that and go, oh, that's really cool. That's not really me, but I think you could help me with my problem anyway. So it doesn't exclude people by niching down. It just attracts people and draws attention so that you can be purposeful in what you do.
Can I just add one point of clarification to that, Mick? And that is, it does exclude people, but it excludes the people you don't want. So the other exercise that I do with clients is not our people. And the feedback I get from clients is, this people like us is so powerful, but understanding who are not the people you want is equally powerful and I keep hearing back from them, it's like, they're not our people. We don't need to worry about them. And then everything changes because you don't have to temper down your language or your themes to appeal to everybody and then become vanilla. You can actually go, no, I don't care about those people. I'm happy for them to be turned off. My language, my themes, my concepts are targeting these people. So how do I show up in a way that signals to them that you're people like us? And an example is my title is Chief Purpose Activist. So I used to be founder and CEO, and I suddenly thought, no, I always have been. I've apologized for it when I was younger. I've been an activist, member of Get Up, member of Amnesty International, out there protesting at things, and action is really important to me, not just word. And when I changed my title, it was really meaningful to me. Suddenly it was like, this is how I have to show up. I can't shy away from it. And some people, I actually got feedback from some people that said, I don't think you should use that because I think you're going to turn people off. And I went, I hope so. They're not my people. I want people who are committed to wanting to create change in the world, because that's what I'm there to help them do. And that's the activist in me. And I finally embraced the part that I'd be like, oh, I'm really sorry. Yes, I'll shut up. I won't talk politics. I won't do this. It's like, okay, this is me. And now I can show up fully as me.
That's really good. I like this. If I can summarize it back to make sure I've got it well, because I'm going to put this into practice myself almost immediately. So the niching down attracts people like us around you. It does not alienate the adjacent people that are not exactly, but they're on the edge of what you do. But it does qualify out and remove the people that are not like us that, quite frankly, you don't want to deal with. And that's another weight off your shoulders, because now you can focus on the people like us that you do want to serve. I love this. And the Leadership Project team, expect a workshop coming up where we're going to work through people like us and people not like us. I like this. Okay. I want to come back to trust now, Carolyn, and we must read the same studies. So the one I refer to a lot is a Gallup study that shows that only 20% of people in the world truly love their job and like their boss, and it's an 80% disengagement rate, and it's getting worse. And trust is a big element of that. So when we talk about these social purpose-led businesses, it needs to be followed through on. The actions speak louder than the words. So if you're a business that stands up and says what you believe in, but then all of your actions tell something else, like if you say that you're a a people-oriented organization and you let go people at the end of every quarter because you didn't make your numbers, well, your actions are speaking louder. And that's where the erosion of trust comes in. What's your reflection of that?
100% agree with what you've said, Mick. It is, you get clarity on your purpose. You articulate it. You're clear that it goes beyond just selling your products and services. It serves a higher purpose, which is a social purpose. If you are going to do that, it is vital that you lead with action. So I want to distinguish between having a purpose statement and being purposeful. There's another great study that came out in 2018, the Global Leadership Forecast by EY and DDI and the Conference Board. And it was the biggest study of C-suite leaders of its kind. 1,500 leaders, I believe, that they researched, and they put them into three categories. Those who had no purpose whatsoever, their organisations. Those with a purpose statement. So what I've talked about, this why, this passive statement that hasn't inspired action. And then the final category is what they described as purposeful organisations. And they describe those as, their purpose is a higher purpose. It's a social purpose, and it inspires action. And they then looked at the financial performance of the three. So those with a purpose statement performed at the mean of all organisations. Those without a purpose performed under minus 42%. Those purposeful organisations outperformed the mean by 42%, plus 42%. So there's a huge difference, and that difference is action, meaningful action that creates change. And they then looked at, what are the attributes of those purposeful organisations? And it was things like they're more agile, they're more resilient, they have a really strong culture, they invest in leadership as well. Because at the end of the day, they're not just there, maximize their profits. They're emotionally invested in something that they care about. And by serving that purpose, that is how they actually create profits and success for the business. But it's that action, purpose that doesn't inspire action. I would challenge whether you actually have a purpose, a meaningful one.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so now I think we're really getting to for love and money. So when the purpose then meets action, then great things happen. The other thing I was hearing there was about resilience, team resilience, and the ability to weather any storm. And people that are driven by a meaningful purpose will weather that storm, whereas people that are just looking to achieve a goal, like a financial goal, etc., they'll work to a certain extent and they'll do their best, but they won't find their way around obstacles any more than someone who is driven by that socially led purpose. So tell us more about how businesses can change their mindset. How can they get to this point where it's for love and money?
When you are developing your purpose, it's understanding that it's not just your why. It is a why, but it's not. We've got to get beyond this idea of our purpose, contextualize what we already do. If you're not creating change in the world, meaningful change, then you are not a purposeful organisation, pure and simple. And there are many ways you can create change. Again, I think people are very limited in their mindset of, okay, we've got to make lots of money and then we can give back. And that's very 20th century view or last decade view, let's say. It's not about giving back. It is being led by the change that you want to create in the world. And it is about using the power of business to create that change. So we always start with brand, because your brand is how you show up in the world to your own people and to all of your stakeholders. So brand positioning is the starting point, and you start with understanding your organizational identity. You start with who, and then we look at within brand vision. So I've got this one-page framework that I use, and at the center of it is a pyramid, and at the top of the pyramid is vision. And that vision is not about it's not your classic vision of by 2030 we want to be the most respected dentist, whatever, accounting firm in Australia or whatever. It's about the vision of the world change. It's a belief statement or a change state of the future that you care enough about that you want to contribute to. And be ambitious. Don't play a safe game. We live in times where we can't afford to be safe anymore. Be ambitious, and you alone will not achieve that change, but you, as part of a movement, will contribute to it. Then you look at your mission, and your mission is your part in contributing to that change. For my business, our vision is business as a force for good, brands driving profit through purpose. Okay? That's our vision. Our mission is to make meaningful purpose, social purpose, a vital part of business in Australia and beyond. And then what drops out of that mission is equally important, your brand promise, which is your no-fail commitment of value, and your social purpose. So too often, a purpose doesn't go far enough to create that social impact. And so that social purpose really is our opportunity to check in and go, how are you creating societal change through that purpose? And if not, how do we express your purpose in a way that helps you achieve that?
Yeah, really powerful, Carolyn. I'm loving everything I'm hearing there and that alignment. Also like what you said, that you may not be able to get there yourself. So co-creation and being part of a movement might be the answer to that. There's something that's been plaguing my thoughts as we go along. Is how meaningful does that purpose need to be for it to be impactful? So bear with me for a second as I work through this. Clearly, there's some societal purposes that are really important. Addressing poverty, healthcare, ending racism, all of these things are really important for the world. What if you are one of those carbonated beverage providers, right, without mentioning them by name? Is it enough that you bring pleasure into someone's world for a small amount of time, and that your purpose is just to, it could be you're a Hollywood movie producer and your purpose is to give people 2 hours of escapism where they enjoy some kind of sci-fi movie or so? Is that enough? Or does it have to be a meaningful impact to the world that lasts beyond the 2 hours of watching a movie?
Go back 3 to 5 years and yes, perhaps that would have been enough. But today it's not. And again, don't take my word for it. This is according to stakeholders. This is, what is being expected of business. So a carbonated soft drink you talk about spreading pleasure, optimism or whatever it may be. No, I don't think that's enough. But what if they ask themselves beyond, creating pleasure for people, moments of pleasure, who else needs pleasure, really needs it? What underserved communities could we bring pleasure to, and how? So it's asking yourself those questions about what are we in a position to change? Not just any old impact, but, what can we uniquely change? So a good example is Unilever. Unilever, one of the biggest packaged goods companies in the world. And they actually started really, really leaning into purpose seriously about 12 years ago. And their CEO then, Paul Polman, famously, he was CEO for 10 years. It was his first gig as a CEO of a publicly listed company. And the story goes that on his first day in the job, Mick, he turned up and he publicly announced and said, Unilever going forward is going to be looking at long-term value creation. We are no longer going to take a short-term view of profit. Therefore, investors, we will no longer be issuing quarterly annual earnings guidance. And what I'm going to tell you now is if you don't like it, respectfully, I suggest you take your money elsewhere. Now, first day of the job, okay, how ballsy is that? And I heard on a podcast, he said, I figured they couldn't fire me on my first day on the job. But I mean, what a leader, what courage. And then within the year, they came out with their strategy, their 10-year strategy, which was called the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. And at the heart of that strategy was their purpose, which continues to be their purpose today, which is we're here to make sustainable living commonplace. Now think about that for a moment. They are one of the world's biggest packaged goods companies. Plastic. They are at the heart of the problem. They're part of the problem, right? And yet that is what they're leaning into. They're saying, well, damn, we can actually lead change in this area. Does it matter to us? Hell yes. And so they set themselves these ridiculously ambitious goals. So one of the goals was to double their footprint and halve their impact. Double their growth and halve their impact, which, by the way, they achieved. But they had three goals, I think, and they said, we know these are crazy, ambitious goals, but we believe it's important to be ambitious. We're living at a time where we've got to have courage, right? And so they set these goals, and they didn't make every single one of those goals, but what they did achieve was massive change in their supply chain, huge change. After 10 years, Paul Polman stood down and Alan Jope, his successor, stood up. And Alan Jope went further and he said, we're working to a future where we will no longer keep brands that are not purpose-led or sustainable. And they now have a new strategy called Compass, and they've again set these huge goals. The innovation that they are driving is just inspirational. And, they've recently been called out by certain high-profile investors as being woke capitalists with too much emphasis on the soft stuff. But they've also been measuring their financial performance, their sustainable living brand portfolio versus their other brands. And that portfolio consistently outperforms the other brands. So they know where they are headed. They are absolutely clear about that. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. But they are committed. And that is what counts. So, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be committed to the change you're seeking to create.
What a wonderful example of leadership from both of those leaders, and then a wonderful case study for us to close out on, Carolyn. I don't want to add anything to that. I think that's a perfect one for people to go and think about. In fact, I'm going to say, next time you're walking down the aisle of a supermarket, be mindful and stop and think of the businesses that you are supporting with your dollar. And are they businesses that believe in the same things that you believe? That's a great takeaway for us to think about. And I now have a dramatically increased respect for Unilever for your example today. So thank you so much, Carolyn, for bringing that. All right, so that brings us to our rapid fire round. These are the same questions we ask all of our guests, Carolyn. So really interested to hear your views here. First of all, what's the one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were 20?
The one thing that I wish I knew was that my perspective back then actually mattered. And I'll contextualize that with the way things are in business are not necessarily the way they should be or could be. And so particularly younger people today, you know, their perspective really, truly matters. And I think it's incredibly important that they actually do the work to make sure that their perspective is grounded in, you know, in understanding what is important and what needs to change. But yeah, I wish I knew that back then, because, you know, as a 20-year-old, I kind of looked up to all these people and thought, oh my God, I didn't go to university. I meant to go, but I got sidetracked by travel. And I just thought, too young, too uneducated. There are all these people there who are incredible, you know, been there a long time. But I look back and I think, no, actually, you know, use your voice, but make sure you're using it well. Don't just use it to say anything. Think about what value you want to bring.
Yeah. Be intentional. Yeah, very good. Okay. What's your favourite book?
This is a tricky one because I've been reading, obviously, my genre, Purpose, recently, and they're all books that are very close to my heart. So Net Positive by Paul Polman and Andrew Winston, you know, Paul Polman, ex-Unilever, brilliant. Good is the New Cool, The Principles of Purpose by Afdal Aziz and Bobby Jones. But the one book that recently has really had an impact on me is actually Seth Godin, This is Marketing.
Okay.
And it's not just from a marketing perspective. He looks at marketing as a way to create meaningful change in the world. Yeah. And it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, well done. All right, thank you. What's your favourite quote?
There's a Nelson Mandela quote. I put it at the front of my book, and it is really simple. A winner is a dreamer that never gives up. And I just think there's so much in that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, really good. Brilliant. All right, love it. And finally, how do people get in contact with you, Carolyn? I'm sure they'll be interested. How do they get copies of your books would be a good one to leave us with. And how do they get in contact with you if they'd like to know more about all that you do?
My book is available on all the major online retail stores. It's also available in some bookstores, high street bookstores, or you can come to my website, carolynbutlermadden.com, my personal website, and you can get it there. And in terms of getting in touch with me, LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so that's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Carolyn. I feel richer for this conversation without any doubt. You've given me a lot to think about. And my team, please be warned, we'll go through some of those exercises together. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mick.
Thank you for listening to The Leadership Project at mickspears.com. A huge call out to Faris Sadek for his video editing of all of our video content, and to all of the team at TLP. Joanne Goes On, Gerald Calabo, and my amazing wife, Say Spears. I could not do this show without you. Don't forget to subscribe to the Leadership Project YouTube channel, where we bring you interesting videos each and every week. And you can follow us on social, particularly on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, in the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and join us on this journey as we learn together and lead together.